On Radigan in the bullseye this evening, tasers coming to a home near you. Taser International planning a major marketing campaign for its civilian products. There are 3 on the market. The least expensive version going for $400. The most expensive will cost you just under $1,000. Taser guns having been involved or associated with 86 deaths since 1999. Most recently, last Thursday, when a 54-year-old man who allegedly tried to bite a police officer in Illinois was hit by a taser and later died of cardiac arrest. In the bullseye this evening, should taser guns be marketed to civilians? Our guests, Edward Jackson from Amnesty International and Alan Gottlieb, president of the Second Amendment Foundation. Mr. Gottlieb, I will start with you. Why should tasers be a civilian tool?
Well, a lot of people who lack a means of self-defense, who live in a lot of cities where they're not allowed to get permits to carry a real firearm for self-protection, would like to have at least some means to defend themselves. And the taser seems to be a very good option.
Mr. Jackson, why not let everybody have a taser? Make sure nobody gets hurt.
Well, because tasers haven't been tested. To the extent that Amnesty International has concerns about the tasers being used by law enforcement, our concerns are our concerns are increased exponentially by the dangers posed by the consumer versions of these devices.
Mr. Gottlieb, does it give you any pause, the questions about the safety of the device before you roll it out to everybody in America?
Not really, because they're used by a significant number of police departments around the United States. They've been tested, they've been around a long time, and it seems like in most of the cases where they became lethal, the people were hopped up on a significant amount of illegal substances in their blood system at the same time. So it's hard to say it was the taser that did it, but the bottom line here is the same argument that's used against real guns as well. And my argument is people should have a right and a means to defend themselves against a criminal attacking them. And a taser is an option for a lot of people who don't really want to use deadly force.
Is there anything, Mr. Jackson, that you could see that would make you comfortable with this?
Well, Amnesty International is not against tasers. We're not anti-taser, no matter how much people like Mr. Gottlieb try to paint us that way. All we're saying is that the verdict is not in. And to the extent that Mr. Gottlieb has very erroneously stated that there are medical studies to support the use of tasers, that's just factually not correct. There are virtually no studies to show how tasers would affect the developing brains of children, yet we're seeing children frequently shot with tasers by police. We're seeing the elderly shot with tasers by police. There's no studies to show how it might affect people with Alzheimer's or osteoporosis or any other type of medical ailment.
The thought that just occurred to me, Mr. Jackson, is that there's probably not a long line of folks around the block trying to volunteer for that taser study.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially considering that with the personal tasers, the models that are available to consumers, the first shock is 10,000 volts. Then instructed to pull, you have to use your taser against them. You could at that point drop and they'll replace it for free.
If you acknowledge at the very least, Mr. Gottlieb, that there's a significant community of people who feel like they have not seen enough medical research associated with these devices, would you be willing to entertain requesting or waiting for further medical research before pushing to have these rolled out for everybody in America?
No, I wouldn't, because there's been over 100,000 cases where people have used these type of weapons to protect themselves. And I think there's about cases where something, and most of those cases, it's not medical studies, because they never referred to a medical study, but coroner's reports and police department studies show, in fact, that there were significant other problems with these people. They may have had a heart ailment to begin with, they may have been taking illegal substances, and it wasn't the taser to start with. But it's the same argument. You can study things all you want, but when a person has a need for self-defense, you should give them the means to have that protection.
Well, we believe that, people have the right to defend themselves, absolutely, but,
Well, I'd like to take issue with you saying that, because quite honestly, Amnesty International, as a non-governmental organization for the United Nations, has been lobbying all across the globe to ban all kinds of firearms from civilian use for self-protection worldwide. So I don't know how you can say that.
Look, you can start in with the black helicopter paranoia and try to demonize Amnesty International, but I'm not going to let you do that, because the reality is, Mr. Gottlieb, if you'd be so kind as to let me talk, is that Amnesty International supports the development of non-lethal weapons. We support police officers having the tools that they need to do their jobs.
You just don't support civilians owning them.
Look, Mr. Gottlieb, what are you going to do the first time a criminal uses a taser in an armed robbery, robbing a liquor store? Prosecutors don't know how to prosecute crimes that are convicted. No, they don't, and let me give you an example. There's a jailer in Indiana who used a taser against an inmate. The prosecutors are charging him with assault with a deadly weapon. Tasers
Well,
are
maybe
supposed
he
to be
misused it.
non-lethal.
Maybe he should be prosecuted. But the problem is,
Mr. Gottlieb,
you just jumped from a robbery.
Mr. Gottlieb, he brings up an interesting point. He brings up an interesting point, which is the key thing that Mr. Jackson just said was assault deadly marketed as non.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that most of the codes are assault with a weapon. I mean, a hammer can be deadly and non-deadly as well, but you get charged with assault with a weapon.
People don't use hammers regularly. The purpose of a hammer is not to use against people.
Criminals use hammers a lot more than tasers.
Look, we can get the reality, which is how this device was designed to be used, or we can deal with your hyperbole and fantasies about how people might potentially use it.
All right, I'm gonna leave it here. Jenna, I'm grateful to both of you, Edward Jackson, Alan Gottlieb. Thank you both, guys.
Thank you.
I do want to check all the stories of the day. Here's Nanette Hansen. Nanette.
Thanks a lot, Dylan. Let's start with the